read a stunning article by Catherine Scholes in the New Yorker this week. And frankly, if I lived right now in the Pacific Northwest, I'd be considering moving. Seriously. The gist of it is this. The federal government estimates 13,000 Americans will die in a major earthquake and tsunami in the Pacific Northwest. It's not a question of whether, but when. This earthquake is coming, and it's overdue. Consider that the magnitude 9.0 earthquake in Japan just a few years ago, remember that, killed more than 15,000 people in the north of Japan and injured thousands of others. Seismologists say that the quake that will strike on our Pacific Northwest coastline should be even stronger, at up to a 9.2. They call such a quake a margin rupture quake, and it's every bit as bad as it sounds. Here's the reason for it. Our entire continent sits on the North American tectonic shelf, right? Plate, I should say. Off the coast of the Pacific Northwest, from the top of Washington State all the way down to northern California. This is it. And another plate called the Juan de Fuca is trying to slide up under North America, but it's stuck. We have an illustration over here in the big wall. Let me show you what this is. This is our continent here. This is the Cascada Mountains. This is the Cascadia, what do they call it? The Cascadia what? Bridge. The Cascadia Bridge. I was actually asking him, but thank you. The North American plate here and the Juan de Fuca plate here. This one's sliding up under, and eventually this is going to go down, send a huge wall of water up. That wall will go all the way over to Japan, and the other will come onto our shore within 15 minutes. And when it slips, it will unleash not only a colossal earthquake, but also that tsunami, 700 miles long, and in some places up to a 100-foot high wall of water and whatever it's pushing, like houses and dump trucks and schools. Thousands and thousands will not escape. The New Yorker quotes a FEMA official who says, and I quote, "Our operating assumption is that everything west of Interstate 5 will be toast." Everything west of Interstate 5 is gone. That's Seattle, Tacoma, Portland and Olympia, Salem and Eugene, wiped out. Altogether about 7 million people. That's not including tourists. So think of summertime. The New Yorker reports that FEMA calculations indicate the disaster will damage or destroy about 1 million buildings, including 3,000 schools and 1/3 of all fire stations. And perhaps the worst part of all of this, these sorts of earthquakes happen at regular intervals in exactly this part of the world, have forever. On average, according to seismologists, about every 240 years. So when was the last one of these massive 9.2 or so earthquakes? Well, the last one was more than 300 years ago, the year 1700. It struck in the Pacific Northwest and sent a 600-foot wave of water all the way to Japan. So right now, on average, the Pacific Northwest is decades overdue for the really, really big one.
Late last night, right after my forecast, within 1 minute of finishing my forecast, the west coast of the United States and going up into Canada struck by a series of significant sized earthquakes, going up to 6.8, and multiple sixes striking across a 25-mile range.
Well, first of all, here's what we found out. And oh, by the way, I've got a lot to talk about. A ton of stuff to cover. Climate. We got a pole shift. The earth is wobbling. NASA said it. Oh, wait a minute. Here's what you need to understand. Consider yourself warned. Warning, warning, apocalyptic warning. Consider yourself warned. But experts are telling us that the Cascadia subduction zone, earthquake, and tsunami will destroy everything west of Interstate 5. I'm just reading the article written by Michael Snyder. Matter of fact, what's amazing is he wrote this article on Saturday the 20th. The earthquakes hit on Sunday night the 21st, actually early in the morning this morning. So this is very prophetic. I don't think Michael Snyder understands this, but he wrote it, and now we've had 6.6, 6.8, 6.5 in the Cascadia subduction zone. They're off the coast of Canada's Vancouver Island. We're talking southwestern section of Canada. We're talking all of Washington State, Seattle. We're talking about Portland. We're all talking about Oregon. We're talking about Northern California. So one day it will happen, he says, with little or no warning. The Cascadia subduction zone will produce a catastrophic earthquake, and it will be accompanied by a massive tsunami. And that will essentially destroy everything west of the Interstate 5 in the Pacific Northwest. It will be the worst natural disaster up to this point in American history. I think potentially in the history of the world. And as you will see below, he says, experts are saying that we are completely and utterly unprepared for it. Matter of fact, of course, the San Andreas fault gets more publicity, but the truth is it's the Cascadia subduction zone is capable of producing an earthquake of biblical proportion, almost 30 times more energetic than San Andreas. And anything that San Andreas fault can produce cannot compare to the Cascadia subduction zone stretching from northern Vancouver Island all the way down to northern California. And one expert recently told CBN News that all of the major cities in the region are essentially built on a time bomb. Now remember, this guy wrote this article on Saturday. The earthquakes hit early this morning. Unbelievable prophetic information here. Matter of fact, he goes on to say, it'll spread from Canada to California over 800 miles, according to Oregon State University paleseismologist Chris Goldfinger he told CBN News. Matter of fact, he's a leading expert on this once unknown fault line. The lack of knowledge about it meant construction all over the Northwest went up wherever and however for many, many decades without even taking giant earthquakes into account. Now, the whole Pacific Northwest is very, very fragile. Essentially, our cities are turn-of-the-century cities built on a time bomb, he says. And that kind of scenario I'm talking about has happened before, folks. The year was 1700. A massive earthquake along the Cascadia subduction zone triggered a tsunami so large that it crossed the Pacific Ocean and damaged coastal towns in Japan. What? Today, the city of Seattle is one of the epicenters of America's thriving technological industries. But it was literally built on a landfill. So when the shaking comes, the ground underneath everyone's feet will literally liquefy. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And at that point, virtually every major structure will collapse, and multitudes upon multitudes of people will die. And those that don't die from being crushed by the falling buildings could end up dying from the falling glass and debris. And according to a head guy at FEMA, at the headquarters there will be 3 feet of broken glass. The downtown Seattle area is a result of the earthquake. So the skyscrapers will start swaying. A lot of them were designed to have their windows pop out, said Matt Caesar of the region's FEMA headquarters in Washington. And there will be 3 feet of broken glass on the roads underneath those buildings in downtown Seattle. 3 feet of glass. We don't even see 3 feet of snow, but we will of glass. And so there won't be any heroes running around like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, pulling people out of collapsed buildings, because nobody will be able to travel through the mountains of glass and fallen debris. Most Americans cannot even conceive of such a disaster because there's never been anything like it before. Even big budget Hollywood disaster movies can't even come close to replicating what the real thing will be like. And according to the Oregon State University paleseismologist Chris Goldfinger, the Cascadia subduction zone is capable of producing an earthquake that is almost 30 times more energetic than anything that San Andreas fault line is capable of producing. And everyone knows that Cascadia's cousin in California, the San Andreas fault line, it gets all that scary glamour from Hollywood in every movie of the year, trying to dramatize on the apocalypse that is coming. Well, the truth is, San Andreas is lightweight compared to the Cascadia subduction zone. Cascadia can make an earthquake almost 30 times more energetic than San Andreas fault line, and it will generate a tsunami at the same time of biblical proportion. And folks, it will get worse. Seattle will be destroyed. I repeat, Seattle will be destroyed. So will Tacoma, Washington. It will be gone. And Portland, Oregon will essentially no longer exist. We're talking about complete and utter devastation on a scale that has never been seen before in modern times. But if the earthquake of 1700 was to happen tonight, that's exactly what we would see. At one point, the head of FEMA's Region X was quoted by the New Yorker as saying that everything west of Interstate 5 will be toast. This is incredible, folks. If the entire zone gives away at once, an event that seismologists call a full margin rupture, the magnitude will be somewhere between 8.7 and 9.2. So do you understand how important it is that we had 3 mega quakes, 6.6, 6.8, 6.5 in less than 90 minutes, all on the Cascadia subduction fault line or subduction zone? And so guys, seriously, listen to me. Jesus said there will be earthquakes in diverse places. There will be earthquakes such as like the world has never seen before. These are the signs of the end times.
Our public has no real concept of how ugly it's going to be after a 9.0 Cascadia quake.
We're in probably one of the most dangerous places in Oregon to have schools.
How will Oregon survive a major earthquake? A quake that could be as bad as what Japan experienced in 2011, or worse.
The subduction zone earthquake is going to stretch from California to the middle of British Columbia. It's just big.
So that one just got turned red.
Is there any worse soil in Portland than we could have built on?
Collapse, partial collapse.
This is the elephant in the room.
People will be on their own for more than just 3 days, in some cases up to 2 weeks, if not longer.
If there is so much that we have to fix, if we have too much damage, we risk never recovering.
Scientists say it's coming, but what can we do to prepare?
We have to take responsibility for this.
30 years ago, no one was talking this way, but now we know the earthquake is coming. So what can we do to prepare ourselves?
Here's my go bag that I keep in my truck and take with me everywhere.
Patrick Corcoran is ready for Cascadia. He happily lives on the coast, but he always carries what he needs to leave on a moment's notice.
What I have in here is a lot of my old camping stuff. Here is some nice rainwear with some fleece inside and some pants, some boots. Next most important is water. I have pure water. I have a warm body. That's 3 days right there. Yes, there's a danger. There is a bit of fear, but that fear can be transmuted into preparedness.
And Pat says that's exactly what he's starting to see.
This ride is intended to simulate a supply run for their local neighborhood.
Disaster relief trials now take place in cities from Portland to Eugene to San Francisco. These volunteer exercises build on lessons from Hurricane Katrina and Superstorm Sandy, where neighbors with bikes proved indispensable.
Do you have a cargo bike? What does your neighbor need? This might be a shortcut around a pile of rubble. This might be the easy route in a disaster.
When a disaster comes and you could step up to the plate and help out, that's going to be where the rubber really meets the road.
Clear.
On the coast, where tsunami signs used to be considered bad for business, tourists now flock to an annual race to high ground.
Thank you for joining us today for Race the Way. We are
always think of it ahead of time when you're heading to the beach. Know where to go.
Oregonians face big decisions about what to build, how much to spend, and how seriously we prepare ourselves at home, in school, and in the places we work. For Kate Raphael, the 2010 earthquake her family experienced in Chile was a wake-up call.
You can prepare for the weeks that follow, because I can guarantee you, our cell phones will go down and all the grocery stores will remain closed and there will be no electricity. And so I can guarantee you that all of the systems that we take for granted will be completely non-functional. So we can create a store of food. We can create a store of water. We can prepare for specific things in the aftermath when we will all have to be self-reliant.
From a geologic standpoint, this is an imminent threat. It's really a race against time. We're good right now because we haven't been hit yet, but we will have wished we've done more when we get hit because it's inevitable.
The lasting lesson from Japan is that megaquakes are bad, but they're not the apocalypse. And it doesn't have to be that way in Oregon either.
Japan is a great example of how an earthquake like this, as bad as it is survivable. And to just throw up your hands and say we're all going to die is wrong.
Cascadia's potential and its risks are no longer a mystery. It's no longer a question of whether it will happen. From here on out, it's only a question of what we do about it.
Don't let this overwhelm your life and overly cloud your life. But to have it be something that we know about, something that we've internalized, part of our being, like rain. We know to wear rain jackets even though the sun might be coming out.
Oregon is a beautiful place. It's not going to be so beautiful after this earthquake, and we want to get it back to that as soon as we possibly can. And I don't think we're there yet right now.